This week on CloudTrail, we're going to set up delegated administration. In security, we toss around the term least privilege, like don't forget to floss. It's up there with defense in depth and quote insider threat as generic guidance that's so broad reaching yet ill defined, you can kind of make it mean whatever you want. I know, I probably just pissed off some of the security pros out there. Now, look, all of these are important general concepts, but the devil is in the details. And sometimes trying to get to true least privilege or defense in depth isn't actually the best choice. It's kind of like a safety third situation. Our job is to manage and reduce risk to whatever level our organization decides it needs, and that's almost never eliminating risk. We want to reduce friction and strike a good balance. That said, sometimes we need to put our foot down and prevent the rest of the organization from shooting us in the foot. One example of this is the root user account security, and we really honed in on that in like our very first labs. And that's a battle that we've largely won. Apology for those of you on Azure dealing with global admin. You'll get there someday. Maybe Microsoft will give you what you need. Our next crucible is locking down the organization management account. And to be fair, AWS didn't really provide what we needed to minimize usage of the management account until relatively recently. And this is still an area where they have room to grow. As you've seen, we need the management account, ours is called CloudTrail, to enable and manage all the nifty org features like service control policies, IAM Identity Center, CloudTrail, and more. It makes sense to run all of those from the top in the hierarchy, but the problem is that anyone that works directly in the management account will potentially have some very broad privileges to mess with other accounts. They might be able to gain access to the organization account access role, which give them administrative access to any account, or they could use something like a CloudFormation stack set to like backdoor all of the accounts. There's just a lot a bad actor can do from the management account. And one of the ways that we can reduce our exposure is to reduce how often people need to use that org management account. Now, for a long time, our only recourse was to try and be really good with our IAM and really have least privileges from the IAM side. But you've heard me say this a bunch. It's actually really hard to get that right. And we do need to support a lot of direct access for everything from managing Identity Center to checking billing. This means that a lot of people were logging into the management account on a day-to-day basis. And we had to set up a lot of different IAM roles and users to handle that. And really was the kind of thing that was just keeping us security pros up at night and still does. Because if those credentials get in the hands of a bad guy or girl, of a threat actor, it can be game over because they can just really do bad things throughout the entire organization. Well, to help with this, Amazon added a capability called Delegated Administration. This doesn't work for everything, but it does work for a bunch of the organization's services, and Amazon has been expanding this capability continuously. Delegated admin is really simple. You set up a service in the management account like we've already done with CloudTrail or with IAM Identity Center, and then you delegate a different account, or in some cases even multiple accounts, as being able to be administrators for that service. Then the users and roles in those delegated accounts can administer the service, like, again, IAM Identity Center. So each of the services is a little bit different in how they do this and how they delegate it. Identity Center, which I've used as my example already, it won't let the delegated administration change any permission sets that were created directly in the management account. Now, that's actually a great feature because it means you can delegate administration of all of your day-to-day users to another account, but the team that's managing that within, say, let's call it an IAM account, because that's the one that we made, they can't actually make changes to lock out the administrators of the management account itself. So you can basically distribute some of the administration, but still keep that good central control. In other cases, you've got CloudTrail, which allows you to do delegated administration to multiple other accounts. Why would you want to do that? Well, that would allow you to set things up so that both security and operations can configure different aspects of CloudTrail for their individual needs. My recommendation is you want to create dedicated accounts for any delegated administration and you want to use delegated administration for every single organization service that it supports. This is why we created that IAM account, and that's where we're going to start today by setting up that IAM account as the delegated administration for Identity Center. And that's why we have our security audit account, which is where we're going to set things up for CloudTrail. We're going to use delegate administration a lot as we progress in this training. It's a really simple concept. You just say from the management account, this other account can manage this service. And it's very easy to set it up, but you do want to be smart about your planning. For example, I almost set up a lab where we created a bunch of permission sets in Identity Center before we set up delegated administration. And what that would have done is that meant that that delegated administration account wouldn't be able to modify those permission sets. Remember, anything the management account sets is locked in stone. So make sure you understand the services, and we're going to walk through these piece by piece as we go through these labs, at least for the ones that have a security context. And hopefully that will help you understand what order you need to implement them. Now, there's one last point we need to talk about in terms of management accounts. And I actually had this in one of our other labs, and it's such a big deal, I'm going to mention it again. What happens if you're running workloads in your management account? If somebody built an application stack in your management account, and you might think, well, who's dumb enough to do that? Well, almost everybody's done that, or a lot of people have done that, because if you get started in AWS and you have your first account and you start building up an application, it's really easy to flick the switch to say, create an organization from that account. The problem is that's a one-way door. Once you create the organization from that management account, you cannot switch it to a different management account for that organization. Now, how do you handle a situation like that? Well, it's beyond the scope of any of the labs that we're going to do, and it doesn't always work. But what you could do is create a second organization, and then you take all of those accounts and you pull them out of the main organization that you started with that has the stuff running in that management account, and then you invite them into the new organization. So you just move them over one by one into that new organization. Now, why is that such a big deal? Because if you're running application workloads in the management account, that means a lot of people are going to be able to log in probably and have some pretty high privileges. So it really does dramatically increase your risk, makes it very hard to lock that down. All right, that's enough of the background today. Let's go into the lab and let's set up delegated administration for Identity Center and for CloudTrail. Let's go ahead and set up our delegated administration. Now we have to start this from the management account. So from our AWS portal, let's go in with administrator access to our management account. Then we need to go into the specific service that we want to enable delegated administration for. In this case, it's going to be the IAM Identity Center. From the dashboard of Identity Center, we want to go into the settings and scroll down a little bit and then go to management. And within management, you'll see delegated administrator, and we can register that other account. So let's go ahead and click register account. By the way, just as a reminder, you do need to be in the Oregon region because that's where we set up Identity Center initially. IAM itself is regionless. It's a global service, but Identity Center is locked to a region, or the region we create on. Okay, so we're going to go register delegate administrator, and we've got a big warning here that anybody with sufficient permissions, and remember in that, whatever delegated administrator account is, the users there still need to have permissions for managing Identity Center, but once they do that, that will affect it in the management account for the entire organization. And we set up an account for this, so let's go to security, let's go to IAM, and register account. Okay, and that's it. So it's going to take a little bit of time for all of that to be baked on the back end, and we're not going to do anything with that today. In our lab next week, we're going to log into that IAM account and use our delegated administration permissions. But this week, we just wanted to get it set up. Okay, with that out of the way, we want to set up our next service, and we're going to go to CloudTrail. So go to CloudTrail. And you guessed it, we're going to go into settings. Actually, I'm guessing it too. I didn't research this one ahead of time. And aha, you can see here, organization delegated administrators. Now notice something really different and important as I zoom in here. This has a counter. And if you look at the display, it's not set up one account. You can actually set up multiple accounts. I don't remember the service limit offhand. I believe that it is 3 different accounts that can be set up for delegated administration. All right, so let's go register administrator. And then we need the account ID in this case. Now, this is what I get for running the lab live. So I'm going to hit cancel here because I don't remember the account ID of my security or of my security audit account. So I'll go to cancel. And because we're in our organizations account, I'm just going to click down. And then I'm going to right click organizations and open it in a new tab. This also is an example of, you notice we got the pick list and identity center here. We actually have to know what the account ID is. That's because it's just different services implement these things in a different way. It gets a little annoying, but it's not a big deal. Okay, we're going to go to security and the security audit account. Whoops. Okay, let me select it this way. There we go. And I'm going to copy that out. Go back in, registered delegated administrator, hit paste, and register. All right, so we've got the green that it was successfully registered. Now, what this is going to let us do is control our, be able to control the settings for CloudTrail. Why is that important? Well, if we go back into CloudTrail and we have our organization trail, let me go to the trails here. And we probably don't want to make too many changes to this, but if I click on that default organizations trail that we originally set up, we might want to do things like add in data events or insight events. And that can now be done from that security audit account. And those security audit folks don't need to log in to our main account in order to set that up. Really easy. Again, one of our quick labs. In this case, I'm not even sure I hit 15 minutes with everything that we're going to do today, but hopefully you understand the core concept. Delegated administration allows us to delegate administrative functions for things in our management account to other accounts. And that is to reduce the need to log into the management account and how many people need to have access and permissions to that management account. It really is just getting us down, moving down that least privilege. And it also allows us to have better blast radius control because we can have a whole bunch of these delegated administration accounts for different services and different functions. And this one can go to security, and this one can go to operations, and this one can go to, I don't know, whoever we want to send it to. That's it. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon when we actually go into Identity Center and start creating some new permission sets.